Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself a Twistee Treat, a little ice cream stand, and you can see it's shaped like ice cream, has some candles on top, and if we change it to night, then we'll see that it's actually well lit. Additionally, we use some banners in order to make sure that it's especially interesting to look at, and it also has a pretty generic interior to make sure you have the true Twistee Treat experience. So without further ado, let's investigate how we'd go about this. Right here, we have the beginnings of our Twistee Treat, and you can see orange semicircle, and it's a pretty basic concept, so let's go over it. We need to choose our starting block, I'd say right here, and make sure we have enough room around it. You can see we have an area over here for seating, and we have enough for an attachment onto the actual building. And then we start by building a semicircle. We go 3 blocks, 2 blocks, 1, 2, 3. And you can see semicircle. And then we can mirror it. If your thing is, well, kind of pressed up against something, make sure that there's 2 blocks so that way it's not super claustrophobic in here. Of course, we need a way to get in and out of it because unfortunately you can't make employees live at their job site. I know, very sad. But anyways, we have this building over here made of birch, we have the main thing made of orange wool, and our goal is to make this go a little bit wider. So we can follow my cursor, try to get maybe like over here, so maybe 1 block out, and then we'll have the sign that goes around, and then we'll turn it into the ice cream cone and end up somewhere around where my cursor is. And you can see, it's a very simplistic build, but we do need an interior and we need to make it cute. Which also, we have a very interesting predicament. If you are building within a city, then you are likely to flatten out a lot of areas, use a lot of smooth stone or something like that, but you might also create something that is called a concrete jungle. Of course, even though there's no concrete being involved still. You can see how we have a lot of gray areas where there's nothing really going on. This is very bad. Instead, we need to make sure that there's always landscape and greenery. So be sure to incorporate things like potted plants, leaves. You can see here how it looks nice and charming, but now that I've expanded its walkway, it looks a lot sadder. So we need to make sure that we have stuff going around. Maybe little bushes around front, or maybe some plants. And of course, make sure that when you have your tables, you need umbrellas. You need to make sure it's full. This area right here detracts a ton from our general area because it's so empty and bland. Even when the build is complete, it's going to look like I plopped down some things and said, oh, this is a city, instead of making a real city. Be very careful of that when you're building a Twistee Treat inside a concrete area. Alright, right here you can see I have the majority of the cone itself done. It's not very tall. And you might also notice how it doesn't really follow the circle shape anymore because of course it got wider. And there's no direct formula for this. However, if you rely on your intuition, you can probably do good. For the first block we go up, I don't do anything. However, for the second block, I start widening our widest points in order to make it look like it has a bit more, well, wideness. I'm not entirely sure what the correct term is. And then, for the next block up, you can see how I added a lot of blocks, like on the very tips, we extend outward, on the corners we add 2 more, and then finally up here, we increase the circle size yet again to another proper circle, where we go 3, 2, corner piece, 2, 3. It's a little bit complicated, but assuming you followed the circle in the intro, then you're likely to do just fine. So hooray, now we've gotten up, and I've also extended this up a little. Also, there's the concrete jungle situation. Acacia leaves plus podzol are being used right here. It's up to you what you want to use, perhaps you want to match your other builds, but regardless, as long as you're making sure you don't have big empty areas like this by the end, then you're probably doing good. But yeah, we're doing decent right now. We widen this up, and finally, we're going to reach a taller point where we have to put some fake text. Chances are, we're going to fudge the text and use some things like purple terracotta to make it look like writing. Now, I've really gotten a bunch of progress by making one simple change. I made all these blocks go up by 1 without changing anything. And then we can finally add the text. Around all these blocks, I outlined them in acacia slabs and then put yellow concrete on top of them. For our back, in order to make sure the yellow merges with the other yellow, then I just used bamboo. I put some spruce trapdoors down here simply because they're a small block. you could potentially use birch shelves or pale shelves or something that would probably fit in a little bit better if you have access to those. And now that we go around front, it's really becoming recognizable as a Twistee Treat, or at least once we add in the snow. And yes, I'm going to be using snow, not white concrete. So we add another layer of these acacia, and then we want to use some crimson buttons to look like text. I'm going to evenly space them like this because it's just more aesthetically pleasing. So we have that, and even though it's definitely not spelling Twistee Treat, I'm not entirely sure what it is, and no, it's not Morse code. Well, plaster all these over, and then eventually we'll have something pretty nice. It's okay if it's a bit asymmetrical, but I'd advise going in and making sure it's not by the end. So we have all this, and now the snow. And, well, you can place down a snow golem and immediately get all your snow. Very simplistic process. And we're going to start just by placing this and make our circle go around as if it never stopped. And we can see bridge the gap, and suddenly we're really making a bunch of progress. Make your circle, make your acacia slabs, and then make your buttons. Flatten off this roof, maybe a few more trapdoors, maybe you want to use the acacia, something like that. Buttons added, all the slabs around, blending it into the back with some spruce trapdoors, and we're really coming together with this Twistee Treat. And of course, you can see there's not really any rhyme to reason, I just placed buttons in a symmetrical pattern. And up top, I've begun building the frosting. And you can see, this kind of sucks. Yeah, so I thought this was going to be pretty simple, but it turns out, no, it's actually quite hard to build frosting. And here's what I'm going to say. 1. Remember snow layers exist. If you're in a snowy area, to prevent your build from becoming a mess, remember that string exists. And that, when it's snowing, string will block new snow from being placed, so that way your arrangements don't get destroyed. But yeah, we have all this, but this really doesn't look good, which means we're going to have to go higher. And this is going to mean your Twistee Treat is probably going to be more than 2 stories, which is pretty ridiculous. Twistee Treat Emporium, I guess. But still, it's necessary to make sure the build works good. And real Twistee Treats are in layers, so we have like layer 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have a point. Sometimes the point is chocolate, usually, however, because there's no such thing as brown snow, thankfully, we also can't do that, which is pretty unfortunate, but still, if you're brave enough, you could definitely make it work. Alternatively, you could use something like a redstone block, red concrete, in order to place a cherry on top, if you want that. Or, if you're feeling brave, mix in some concrete underneath some of the snow layers to make it look like there's sprinkles. Essentially, this is ice cream. Decorate it like ice cream. Alright, with some of that snow smoothing down, I've gotten roughly the shape. Of course, you can always try improving upon it, and there's not really any exact instructions because snow layers are just kind of finicky to work with, especially because they have 8 different states. I recommend trying your own variants of it, but roughly follow the ideas presented here. And of course, don't forget, you can always try your candle method, however, that will melt the snow if you light them, or you could hide some of the concretes. I think I'm going to leave it kind of bare in order to make it, well, simpler to follow. And hooray! Now we've mostly finished the exterior on this. It's not a terribly complicated build, but it's quite charming, which is kind of the majority of the reason you build it. So we go around back, of course, we can place down the door. The door, up to you. I'd probably put maybe like a birch door for this. I mean, it matches the walls. And we go in, and what do you know? It's dark. So make sure it's well lit. And additionally, make sure that you are in fact hiding some of the lights from here. As in, make sure that there's another layer of whatever before placing down your sea lanterns, or whatever lighting you use. Because there's a chance you might accidentally melt the snow through this, you won't notice, and you're like, hey guys, look at this, and they'll laugh at you because your build is slightly asymmetrical. Which, I don't think they particularly want that. So make sure that you do not accidentally melt your snow through blocks. And then for the inside flooring, just figure out maybe like a checkerboard, or you could alternatively look at real photos, or just wait till the next clip. Real quick, I redid the roof in order to make it just better looking. That way it's less Hershey Kiss and more actual ice cream. Less snow layers, and now we have some candles lit in order to make sprinkles. And if you're brave enough, you can try chocolate on top. So yeah, I might add that later. But for now, let's worry about the lighting, because of course, we need to make sure this looks good at night. Under the bushes, I hid some sea lanterns, and let's do this all around the build. And then, up front, I also have some carpet that can hide a sea lantern at the front desk. We'll worry about the interior in a moment. We also need the menus, and potentially you could try banners. So, of course, not orange, the building's already orange. But basic ones like this work perfectly fine, although you could definitely make some ice cream shapes on them in order to make it more obvious they're menus. So you can try that. And then for our interior, try some pale in order to hide some of the orange on the inside. And then we just have very simple stuff. Tough flooring, and then we have light gray concrete walls, cyan terracotta here. Yeah, Twistee Treats are very boring on the inside. So yeah, we have the lighting, making sure that we have the solid layer to make sure it doesn't melt. So hooray. Just put a bunch of boxes back here, and then I'll show you how to make some ice cream dispensers. And then we'll be almost done with this. Right here, I've added some ice cream and lettering to this using banners, and you can see how it really ties the build together. Technically, the entire wordage would be on this layer, however, it's just not going to fit. However, if you really like this, then there's a link in the description for a link tree, and you can see how you can do all these banners. And then, flashing on screen right here, you can see how we can build these banners here. So that way we have nice flavorings. I'm not sure how you do vanilla though, so this place offers banana now, I guess. And by the way, notice how you can incorporate the breeze symbol in order to make sure it overflows, or you could just do a straight line across to get your more normal looking ice cream. Then on the inside, you can look around and see we have a bunch of boxes, a closet, a sink, and it's not that interesting. We have a soap bottle in the form of a candle, an ice cream dispenser, who knows what the blue flavor is, and then we have some iron doors. Technically, if it weren't for the scale of Minecraft, there should be a bathroom on the side of the building, however there wasn't really any room for that. But if you really want that realism, then you can definitely go ahead and do that. So fixing a few slabs here and there, and the actual building is done. Which now means it's time to build a little bit of the exterior's amenities, like our chairs, our tables, things like that, and of course, avoiding the concrete jungleism. We can see right here, very empty area, and it's just gray. It looks like I plopped this here. That's not what we want. We need to incorporate it, and there's a bit of room to get past here, so as long as you have one block, it's completely fine. But yeah, we need to make sure that this is a bit more green. Moss is a good block for this, grass, maybe small trees, things like that. Make sure that if there's other builds nearby, avoid the concrete jungle. Now, our final addition, just some basic tables, made of cherry with some tuff on either side to resemble chairs, and then we have some flower pots. Of course, these are meant to be empty cups. You could do sea pickles instead. And then we have some flower pots around. So hooray! We also have umbrellas. Open ones look like this. The carpets are being held up by string. And then the closed ones are just some wool with white banners on it. And then I chopped off the top of this and made it a bit smoother so that way it resembled ice cream more. Which means we're complete. We now have a completed Twistee Treat, and it's a nice little charming build. If you have any open plots, then you can place one by it instead of just adding more leaves, which of course you can add to remove concrete jungle areas, but still, from afar, it's quite noticeable and it adds a lot. And you might notice that the banners fade away, so if you're really reliant on that text, the build could be slightly diminished. But still, even from here, you can see it adds a lot to our town because, well, it's just a little festive building and you can get ice cream here. So, hooray! If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe, it really helps me out. Either way, enjoy the rest of your day. Gearsaw